Back in the day, they said the NBA is fantastic and another season's about to get started. So let's get into the Western Conference and start with Will. Minnesota has been in the news this week, not maybe in the greatest way, but more so because the information got out about Jimmy Butler and his disdain for his teammates. And they even challenged them to the point of bringing some of the guys at the end of the bench, including Luol Deng, challenged the starters, and they cleaned their clock in practice. I know you've been a part of NBA practices, so talk a little bit about the type of dissension that might be going on with that organization and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, initially I really liked it. I thought having your leader come in there and inject some energy into your team, if they could, the next day though was the most important day, and I saw they canceled practice, whether it was true or not. If you did cancel practice and you had a meeting with the guys and you could have got on the same page, I thought that could have been a really good thing for this thing, because this is a very talented team. And then I saw where he set out the preseason game. So, it's a disaster there. I don't think it can be fixed at this point. I think it's a lot of issues. Money being one. I don't think Butler is going to be able to handle playing, with these two guys making a significant more money than he is. And I just think you got to trade him at this point. And it's sad because there's no way this club can make the playoffs in the West without Jimmy Butler.
I'm kind of taking KG's take on this. I think both sides are a little delusional, is what he said. I mean, Jimmy Butler, he's a very talented player, but he's not that guy that's going to take a team and lead them to NBA championship or deep into the playoffs. He's going to need a very helpful support system. And then, like Will said, they're just carrying this stuff over in the media. This team, even if Jimmy goes back, they're going to be a disaster. They don't make the playoffs. So it's a bad situation.
And it sounds like to me that the front office had this already figured out. When you gave Wiggins the max and then you turn around and gave Cat the max, seems like you already had this figured out. But I guess what they were thinking is, like Roy said and KG said, Jimmy's not that guy, so maybe we can lowball him and get him to stay. And turns out, I think it offended Butler, and that's why we have all these issues.
Yeah, he says all he really wants is a little bit of love. Speaking of love, there's a love fest going on in La La Land with LeBron James and Lil King, as he coined him, Lonzo Ball. What do you think of Lonzo getting the title of Lil King?
Lonzo's got to prove something first. I mean, he can't give him the crown yet. And obviously, he's worked on his body. He's worked on his shot. So he's shown that he wants to get better. But with that team, I'm not sure the role he's going to play. They brought in Rondo, and he's playing the point. You got Brandon Ingram playing the point. And, of course, you got LeBron. When all else fails, you give him the ball to get out of the way. But I'm not sure the role Lonzo's going to play with this.
Lonzo added 20 pounds of muscle, and the jump shot looks a little bit more fluid, at least in the preseason. Will, what do you think?
I like this group. I like Lonzo alongside LeBron. I think they're going to exceed many people's expectations. This little King thing is just LeBron playing counselor, trying to give his young fella some confidence going into the season, because he knows he's probably going to start the season on the bench behind Rondo. But don't worry about it, because I anointed you as the little King. So everything will be okay.
So what role do you think he plays in offense? Who does he play behind, or what kind of minutes he's going to get? I think he's just in a tough situation.
He definitely is. I can see him being moved by February. I really can, because if you watch the preseason, when LeBron's out of the game, the guy who handles the ball the most is Brandon Ingram. And I think that's the guy that they've always liked ever since Magic has taken over. He's the one guy that Magic's always said is off limits when it comes to trading. So I think Lonzo Ball is the odd man out here. And I think a lot of people around the league like what he can do when he has the ball in his hands. Unfortunately, I don't see him getting that opportunity with this group.
I also think this is an audition for Brandon Ingram, whether they're going to sign him long-term or use him as trade bait, so to speak. I mean, if you put him at point guard, obviously he's going to have the ball in his hand and see if he can make plays. So I think it's a good situation for Brandon Ingram either way.
Well, we're getting close to picks time, but before we get there, some more nuggets to pass along. Joel Embiid, he drops Adidas and winds up being picked up by Under Armour as he's now the new pitch man there. Can a big man sell shoes and merchandise?
I don't think so. Shaq was one of the greatest big men of all time. Great personality. As we see him, he's constantly getting endorsements, even after his playing career, and he couldn't get it done. I love Joel Embiid as a player. I love his personality, but at the end of the day, it's just not a lot of kids walk around like, I'm going to be 7 foot. I'm going to be like Joel Embiid. And I think in saying that, they can't really, relate and go out there and emulate him on the court. And with that said, I just don't think he's going to be able to move shoes like that.
I agree to a certain extent, but Joel Embiid is a different kind of guy. He has a very engaging personality. He kind of relates to a lot of people, despite his size. I know it's hard for big guys to sell shoes, but I think he gets it done just because his personality is so engaging.
Well, another interesting note this time from the police blotter, where out of Detroit is reporting that Senator Andre Drummond allegedly impregnated 2 Instagram models at the same time. What's Andre doing?
I mean, how do you do that at the same time? But that's amazing in itself. But man, how does that get out? We talked about the man Frank Kaminsky breaking the code last week. Andre Drummond, shame on you, brother.
Drummond's living his best life, man. He's living his best life.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a challenge. Okay, it's picks time as we quickly try to change the subject and get into the Western Conference. Some exciting games. We looked at the top 8 from last year, and a couple of teams were on the outside, just so close. Those first 3 teams were dominant, and the rest of that final 5 were, several rungs back in the win column. So who do you like in the West? Who are your top 4?
Golden State, number 1. Just they have the best group. I mean, that team is going to be tough to beat. Houston, number 2. I think the addition of Carmelo Anthony will help. They lost some stuff on the defensive end, but when it comes playoff time, having a veteran guy like that with that kind of talent to help you out, that's going to be big. I have Utah, number 3. I think Donovan Mitchell really has comes into his own this year. I like what Quinn Snyder's been able to do. They defend, and they have a lot of solid guys. They don't really have superstars, but a lot of solid guys. And Quinn Snyder has control of this group. The young guys are developing. Guys like Dante Exum will be back. He's been hurt, in and out of the lineup the last few years. And the 4th spot, I'm down with the king, man. I'm going with the Lakers. I really like what they've been able to do. And what he's going to bring to that team is every night you go on the floor, you're going to expect to win just because you have him, and that's going to change the culture around there. And what it's going to bring is going to bring accountability. If you're expected to win, guys are going to start holding each other accountable because they know you have to do A, B, and C, and meaning the little things to get the W's. And if you can get those young guys to do this with that talent, they're going to be good.
Well, I'm going with Houston at number 1. I mean, they were the best team in the West record-wise last year, and people say that they lost things. Trevor Ariza hasn't been a lockdown defender in years. I mean, they bring in a younger guy, James Ennis. He's played well, and you bring in Marquise Chris, and he expected to do a nice athletic guy, gets after it, and he adds a little depth to the team. And also, Carmelo's a supreme scorer, as we know. He can turn it on and go for 30 or 40 at any time. At number 2, I'm going with Golden State. Golden State was 58-24 last year. They're not exactly tearing the league up. I mean, that's a pretty good record. But there's rumblings, and I think it's getting louder with the departure of Klay Thompson imminent, possibly KD leaving, and possibly Steve Kerr being this last year. So I think they have a little bit too many distractions to win the championship this year. Number 3, I'm going with OKC. I think Paul George and my man Russ, have enough in themselves to get it done. And one of the most underrated guys, center Steven Adams. He controls the paint. I like them a lot. At number 4, I'm going with Utah as well. He got a budding star in Donovan Mitchell, and he's got some pieces to go with him. So I like those.
All right, so we got the predictions of the experts. Now let's go ahead and get your thoughts on that as well. You can chime in on our Facebook page and or any of our social media. Between the Lines is where you can find those designations, and the polls are out there, so make sure you take advantage of that. Guys, since we are predicting, Roy, I'm going to start with you. Who is your preseason Rookie of the Year?
Wow, this is going to shock some people, but I'm going with Luka Doncic. And the reason why is because he's one of the better young players on a team that doesn't have a lot of expectations. And I think they're looking to turn the team over to he and Dennis Smith. And I think Dirk's coming off the bench, so he's going to get a lot of shot opportunities. I've seen him play. I was kind of skeptical about him, but he can do a lot of things. He's very good passing the ball, pretty good knockdown shooter, and I think he's going to win it.
I'm going with Aiden. The thing about what Roy said about Doncic, I think Doncic is going to have an issue because you also have a young guy in Dennis Smith, and both of these guys need the ball. And Dennis Smith, was drafted, and he's thinking, I'm the franchise guy. Now you go get, move and get Doncic. I think they're going to cancel each other out. I'm going with Aiden because here's a guy that doesn't necessarily need the ball because he can rebound, he can block shot. He's going to be able to play off Devin Booker and Josh Jackson, and he's been really good in the preseason. And he also has a veteran in Tyson Chandler that he can learn from, and I think he could possibly average 20 and 10 as a rookie.
What I see the problem with Ayton is on the defensive end of the floor, where the West is playing small ball and they get him out on the perimeter, it's going to expose him a lot. So that's why I didn't go with Ayton. It was a close race between the two, but I'm giving the edge to Luka.
And neither one of you guys picked Trae Young.
Oh, no. Trae might not even start for his team.
All right. It's time for the Defensive Player of the Year. Who will that be?
I'm going with the Stifle Tower, Rudy Gobert. Again, to win it again. He's just a big force inside. He changes the game completely. And he's adding to his offense, so I'm going with Rudy.
I like Anthony Davis. Here's a guy that can switch and guard every position on the pick and roll. On the pick and roll, he can protect the rim, and he's more mobile than Rudy. He's going to be able to cover more ground, and I just think he's a more versatile defender, and he's going to have to do a whole lot. I think Utah with Rudy, they're a good defensive team in general. I think it's New Orleans are not going to be able to defend a lot of people, so Anthony Davis will be that anchor right there, and he'll have a big year.
I think the Defensive Player of the Year is kind of driven by stats. I mean, Anthony Davis is going to be good on pick and roll, but how do you measure that? Of course, Stifle Towers blocks a ton of shots, does a great job rebounding. And I agree, Anthony Davis is a supreme defender, no question about it. But I think numbers dictate the winner in this one.
And see, I think Davis will have more steals than Gobert. I think he'll be right there with the blocks, but I think he'll have more steals just because of his versatility.
And one guy that I wanted to throw out to both of you guys, I think could be a surprise pick in this one. He hasn't won a Defensive Player of the Year award, and LA is going to need him to do that. That's LeBron James.
Not going to happen, Charles.
All right, time for the Most Improved Player. Will, we'll start with you.
I'm going with Brandon Ingram. Just having LeBron there that he can learn from. He averaged 16 points a game last year. I can see that getting to the 18, 20 range. He's going to be the guy, seems like, when LeBron goes to the bench. And I think they're going to win a lot of games. Last year they won 35 games. I have them picked fourth. Last year, the fourth seed in the West won 48 games. I think LeBron is definitely worth plus 14 wins on the season. So I'm going with Ingram.
I'm starting to see a trend. First, now he's a Lakers fan.
I'm not a Lakers fan. I just like what they're doing.
And Brandon Ingram is the best player in the league. I mean, what give? Duke ties? Could that be it? But I'm going Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray has improved his shooting every year. He got surrounded by a good group of guards, but I think he's the leader of that group. He's a great three-point shooter. He's not afraid to take the big shot. So I'm going with Jamal Murray.
All right. And that brings us to our first-time All-Stars.
I'm going with Ben Simmons. I think Philly finishes second behind Boston, and finishing that high, they're going to get 2 All-Stars, and I think it's going to be Embiid and Simmons.
Wow. No Jason Tatum, huh?
I think he's an All-Star.
I'm going with Jason Tatum. He stepped up big in the playoffs last year. He's been working with Kobe. I mean, he's going to take on some of his techniques and the Mamba mentality, as they say. I think Jason Tatum has a huge year, even with the return of Gordon Hayward and Kyrie. So I'm going with Jason Tatum.
I mean, I like that pick. I'm going to go even further. I think Jason Tatum ends up being the second leading scorer on that team.
Well, I got Jason Tatum for most improved since you guys shot me down on my LeBron pick. But let's go ahead and take you to the final segment, which is our opportunity to reach out to you guys and ask you to be a part of our polls. We're polling you right now on a variety of different topics, and all we really want you to do is interact with us. Thank you to the over 2,000 people that watched the opening show. Please share that with the rest of the folks out there. And until we meet again, enjoy the NBA. It's fantastic, and it's happening tonight. Take care. Good night, and God bless everyone.